Welcome. This is Marianne. In this video, I want to talk to you about what is a trauma response or survival mode, and how can you identify if you're still operating in your adult life through unprocessed trauma from when you were little. There's a couple of red flags here that can show up quite obviously, and if you bring some self-awareness to it, you can go, oh, wow, I do that. I can read out a list and you can tick them all off and go, wow, but I never had any trauma when I was little. And the interesting piece is people think it has to be something really bad that's happened to you for you to have a trauma response. What a trauma response is, or what trauma is identified is when either your nervous system was shocked. A lot of people can't remember their childhood. So, you've probably got a lot of unprocessed trauma. But the reason we can't remember most of our childhood is because our hippocampus in the brain wasn't developed enough to hold emotional memory. So we just felt everything, right? Quite substantially. So here's the thing. What is a trauma for you may be something quite insignificant for me, and my trauma to you might be, oh my God, how are you still alive? So we all process things differently. But what I can tell you is 98% of the planet have some sort of childhood trauma, whether they were screamed at, humiliated, abandoned, embarrassed, neglected, beaten, sexually abused, whatever, grown up with an alcoholic parent, whatever it is, it's going to affect you somehow. Some people shut down, pretend it never happened, drink their way through life, smoke their way through life. Some people project it onto others. Some people never process it and then end up getting all sorts of illnesses, right? Because it manifests in the body. I'll read some of these out and see if you know anybody that has these or you have them. So the first one, first kind of trauma response, or what we call when the body goes in or the mind goes into survival mode, is when you all of a sudden become quite paralyzed or you procrastinate. Let's say you're about to do some sort of big project, and then your nervous system kind of shuts down, and you just turn off and you go and watch Netflix for 6 hours, even though you'd love to do it. There's a situation here where your nervous system can't keep up because maybe when you were little you did a task and you got laughed at, or there's some sort of unconscious fear of failure, or whatever it is like that. That can be an example. Another trauma response is when you get irritated very, very quickly by noise. Now, this could be even quiet noise, or it could be big bangs outside, getting really shocked, right? And then you can, and notice if you get irritated when you can't control something, if somebody's been allowed, or then you go into bursts of anger. So these are very strong indicators of unprocessed trauma. A reasonable person that has a really conditioned, practiced, someone who never had any big traumas when they grew up, when they were growing up or when they were little, don't get that irritated to things, because noise is a thing that you can't control. And so when it's happening, it's the control mechanism that is the trauma. So if you can't control an outcome, can't control somebody, this triggers big time for people that have come from chronic childhood trauma, complex childhood trauma. Another trauma response is always worrying about money. This is about survival instinct, not fear of not being able to take care of yourself, or making the wrong decision when it comes to money. Because if you make a wrong decision, you're putting yourself in a high-risk situation. And this comes from hearing that old story over and over again by, any stuff about the money beliefs, or you don't deserve money, or you can't have money, or we don't have enough money, or money doesn't grow on trees, and all of that. Another common one is sleep struggles and snoring. And snoring is a refusal to change old habits. There's a unconscious thing there, and sleep struggles is not coming into a daily practice where you're dealing with the past, dealing with what happened, and it'll be playing out in your unconscious mind. Can't switch off, can't switch off, can't switch off. This is about survival instinct. This is about feeling overwhelmed, too much to do, and having a lack of self-reason. And the other one is severe fatigue, and it's something that suddenly comes over to you, a bit like the first one about procrastination or paralyzed. You could be going throughout your day and you're just all of a sudden overwhelmed, super tired. Now, some people might say, oh, this comes from a sugar crash, or, you know, my mid-afternoon crash, or whatever it is. But the point is that when you've really dealt with a lot of things, your blood sugar doesn't go up and down. You don't have to crash, right? And so severe fatigue, things that manifest in the body physically, which I'll go through shortly, are all unprocessed trauma. And these are professional, proven. Many people, if you research, you just have to listen to Dr. Gabor Mate, or many professionals who are dealing with trauma now. You know, they're moving away from the old medical diagnosis and trying to understand the brain, the nervous system, the mind, the belief system, what's actually going on for a person. So this medical diagnosis, even as far as bipolar, ADHD, they're showing that these responses are from childhood trauma. So check it out, do your own research, do your own Googling. You'll be very surprised what you see. So physical, another thing is when people get really down when they don't have attention. This is quite a common one, when you have been, your needs weren't met when you were little and you were neglected a lot, and let's say you have a partner who's not giving you enough attention, or you feel you go into this deep stoop of loneliness, which is a pandemic on the planet in itself, because you're not tuning into the self, right? And so when we're, you know, obviously the outcome of loneliness is human connection. Go and have human connection. So why don't people go and have human connection? Well, if they've come from a lot of childhood trauma, they self-isolate a lot, don't trust a lot of people. So they feel awkward, or they don't feel like they're wanted, or they don't feel like they belong anyway. So they'd rather spend it alone and then get down, you know, when they don't get that sort of attention. And lastly, that's not lastly, there's thousands of these trauma responses, but these are some that I'm just pointing out to you that you may be aware of or not aware of, and you're wondering why you tend to have this happen. Migraines, so the physical symptoms are migraines, you know, like if you know somebody that has a lot of migraines, like I can't cope with life, I can't see the future. If you have people that know people that have a lot of gut issues, they could have been really strictly potty trained and had that, you know, if they're constipated all the time, have that real fear. As soon as they're stressed, the bowel locks up. Gut issues such as can't, you know, always got belly problems, things like that, can't digest life. Asthma, lung problems. This is fear of life, you know, in the body. You just have to Google all the metaphysical reasons for responses in the body. But these are trauma responses. Skin issues, irritation, right? Itchy skin. This is all irritation. Shoulder pain, massive for holding, you know, going into battle, you know, into the trauma response area. Also, shoulder pain is carrying the world on your shoulders, you know, not having any support. Back pain, not having any support, feeling like you can't, fear of not supporting yourself, fear of not trusting life, all of these things. And then hard to swallow. This is from someone who's got chronic trauma, childhood trauma, and it's this fear response, you know, fear of speaking your truth, or getting really fearful when you're attempting something new can get like that, or the shakes, of course. And then always bloated, another one, fibromyalgia, pain in the body. It's all unprocessed trauma. And so what do we do with all of this? Well, this is why it's so valuable to do work around the nervous system and the unconscious belief system at the same time. If you just do work around the nervous system, you can have that somatic alignment, you can have that somatic response in the body, push the body and the mind will follow. But to really dive deep and understand what's actually being programmed in you, what are those fear responses you had when you were little that caused the trauma, whether it was through, coming from a severe childhood trauma, whether it was coming from what was severe for you. There's no judgment here, or whether you had chronic sexual abuse. It all adds up to fear responses, trauma responses. And if we don't deal with them, we get, in our older age, and like arthritis like this is unprocessed anger, and all sorts of things can happen, heart disease, broken heart syndrome. And so what I'm doing is 2 classes, one starting on it's a trauma recovery class. We're going to go through this life. Also, a generational trauma will be in there as well. And you're going to be learning 6 very valuable techniques how to overcome unprocessed trauma. And you can take these away for life, right? These are really significant changes, and we're going to be re-scripting and reformatting these unconscious beliefs, and we're also going to be re-scripting and reformatting the nervous system so that you don't get triggered about these certain aspects of your life, or if somebody's uncontrollable out there, or you don't get angry. And so this is the way of the future as far as trauma response diagnosis versus medical response diagnosis. And you'll find a lot of people are doing breath work, they're doing all sorts of things in the somatic experience to release trauma in the body instead of medicating. So if that's something you're interested in, check out the description. I've got all the classes. I've got one in US starting on the Thursday the 5th evening, and one in UK time zone starting this Sunday coming. So I look forward to seeing you. If you need my help, reach out, message me. If you want to pay as you go, that's another option. I can give you options there. So I look forward to hearing from you.